I'm so excited for everyone to call me a bad person again in my comments, but guess what? I do not care about Nebraska going bankrupt in 6 months. I do not care. I do not care. Maybe a few other of those red states should go bankrupt in 6 months so the blue states can swoop in to save them, so they can understand that we are not the bad ones. We are not the poor ones. We are not the ones who cannot survive under the orange turds' crazy policies. But you know why I don't feel bad for Nebraska? You know why? Because I believe I heard 65% of their workforce is undocumented people, which means they're not coming to work anymore, which means work's not happening, which means all the farmers in Nebraska are going to go bankrupt because they all went out there and voted against their neighbors. 65% of neighbors who are immigrants, okay? Fuck around and find out at this point. You know what I mean? And of course, I do feel bad for those blue people in Nebraska who did not vote for this. So unfortunate. That's what you get for being racist and not wanting immigrants in this country, even though they're paying taxes and contributing. So
like, I was all for fucking Trump. Now with Trump passing the law that if your kid's on if you put your baby dad on child support, they're going to be getting the money from the child, like for child tax. How the fuck does that work?
The funniest thing about this is it isn't even true. These MAGA moms are all over the internet right now screaming and crying about how they regretted voting for Trump because right-wing men who love to control women have spread this rumor all over Twitter, and it's made its way here, stating that if you're a single mother, too bad. If a man pays your child support, he gets to claim your children on his taxes as dependents, even if he hasn't seen them in who knows how long. And they are breaking down. Is this how we win? Well, interestingly enough, it's kind of weird how you don't care how your vote affects anyone else, but you start crying and backtracking when it hypothetically affects you, even if it doesn't actually affect you. And it also shows how susceptible you guys are to misinformation and how misinformation will literally sway how you think and vote. But regardless, this is how we win. We just tell these single moms out here, spread rumors. Donald Trump signed an executive order stating that you have to pay your baby daddy's car note. Donald Trump signed an executive order stating that you have to pay your baby daddy's fucking mortgage and electric bill. And I guess they'll regret their vote. This is fucking hilarious. Anyways, my name is Mercedes Chandler. Give me a follow or you won't see my face again. Thank you. Goodbye.
So this morning I ended up on Nebraska Talk, and it was a bunch of people crying, why does anybody care about Nebraska? When we voted for Kamala Harris, when I cast my vote for Harris, that was me saying, I care about you and I want you to survive and thrive. Okay, you knew better than anybody else that your state thrives and survives off of migrants' backs. Okay, and instead of them waiting for ICE to come, they decided to peace out before they could come and get them. I don't know what to tell you guys anymore. This is what you voted for. Whether you like it or not, whether you want to believe it or not, this is exactly what you voted for. And now you're feeling it. What do you want us to do? You want a government handout? That's socialism. You voted against that. No. Sadly, the reality is that you'll probably have to sell a lot of your farms for pennies on the dollar to large corporations and manufacturers. But don't worry, they'll probably let you work there for minimum wage.
So my MAGA mom, who watches Fox News nonstop, had her find out moment on Valentine's Day. She doesn't get out much. She has a lot of health problems, but she got herself together and they were going to go out to dinner at their favorite Mexican restaurant in town. However, when they got there, apparently it's been shut down for good. Shut down. So I said to her, because I know they were all Hispanic, and I know they all came from Mexico because the owner was extremely wealthy and he would go back from time to time to Mexico. It was a restaurant we'd gone out to, I'm going to go 30 years, love it. Excellent food. And I said, you think it had anything to do with the fact that they were Hispanic and from Mexico?
There's a little bit of good news coming out of Nebraska. I mean, if you could call it good news. They have identified a way to cut their budget shortfall pretty much in half. Now, if you haven't been paying attention to the story that's happening in Nebraska, there's a lot of panic that the state is going to go bankrupt. And there's some saying it will happen in just the matter of a couple of months because they have a $400 million budget shortfall. There's a lot of different reasons for it. Let me tell you what they are. But a lot of it very much is self-inflicted wounds. And now they're kind of dancing around going, oh my God, what did we do? Nebraska is experiencing right now at a state level what we're all about to face at a federal level. So I think it's important to pay attention there because this is what happens when you give giveaways and subsidies and tax breaks to the wealthy and you do all of these things that in the moment feel right because they get you votes and they get you popularity and they get you all the shit. And then when you have to pay the bills, you realized you've fucked yourself. And that's exactly what Nebraska has done. I think the number one reason that Nebraskans should be concerned is that they've lost their immigrant labor. Nebraska was one of those states that had there's a lot of farming, a lot of agriculture type businesses, and they use a lot of immigrant labor. Whether they're documented or not, does not matter. There were people who were not native Nebraskans who had moved there and were working there. Nebraskans, like a bunch of other states, voted for Trump, which told their immigrant population, we're not welcome here. Instead of waiting for the jackboot stormtroopers from ICE to come knock on their doors, the immigrants pieced out. We're going to go someplace where people will use our labor and will like us and will treat us with a little bit of dignity. So they probably hustled their asses to Colorado or California or someplace else where they could get work and they could be safer. So rumor has it that this was 60% of their labor force. And when you lose that much of your labor force, you've got no one to pick your wheat, you got no one to slaughter your cows, you're in big fucking trouble. So that's the start of it. They're not making as much revenue. They're not supplying as much food into the food chain, which, by the way, screws all of us. Our food supply is going to be fucked if this happens. So let's just say that. But they also did a lot of other things, right? They put in corporate tax breaks and they did all this other stuff. Now suddenly they don't have a pot to piss in. Their budget committee has gone back to work and they're trying to find places where they can find this money. And they've identified 165 million more in.
You fucked around with your vote. Now it's time you found out. Am I the asshole for cutting off my sons financially after they voted for Trump? I, 52 male, have two sons, Isaac, 22 male, and John, 20 male. My wife and I have always leaned left politically, and we've raised our kids to value equality, compassion, and critical thinking. We've had countless family discussions about politics and the impact of policies on people's lives. So you can imagine my shock when I found out after this last election that both of my sons voted for Trump. It came out during a casual family dinner when I asked, so who'd you guys vote for? Expecting them to either dodge the question or name one of the candidates aligned with our values. Isaac shrugged and said, Trump. His policies just make the most sense right now. John chimed in, yeah, I mean, he's about protecting the economy. People like us need someone who gets that. I stared at them, stunned. People like us? I asked. Boy, you've never paid for a single tank of gas, let alone rent or tuition. What exactly do you mean by that? Isaac rolled his eyes. Dad, I'm studying business. Trump's pro-business. It's not that deep. It's plenty deep, I snapped. You're backing someone who's gutted protections for the environment, undermined health care, and actively targeted marginalized communities. John shook his head. You're just looking at the negatives. He's strong on immigration and keeping jobs here. The conversation spiraled into a heated debate. I couldn't understand how they, having grown up with every advantage I could provide, could support someone who champions policies that harm so many people. That night I thought about how much my wife and I had sacrificed to give them opportunities. I worked extra hours to cover their tuition so they wouldn't have student loans. I paid for their gas, car insurance, and even groceries. And this is what they choose to do with that privilege? A few days later, I told them my decision. If you want to support Trump's policies, you should also live by them, I said. From now on, you'll need to cover your own tuition, rent, and living expenses. Maybe then you'll understand the real-world impact of the policies you are endorsing. Isaac was furious. Are you serious, Dad? You're just cutting us off because we disagree with you politically. It's not about disagreement, I said firmly. It's about accountability. You voted for someone who's against student loan forgiveness, so take out loans. You support someone who doesn't believe in raising the minimum wage, so get a job that pays what it pays and figure it out. John looked hurt. You're being petty. This isn't how you change someone's mind. This isn't about changing your mind, I replied. It's about giving you a dose of reality. FAFO ain't just some cool hashtag you and your little friends use. It means there are consequences to your actions. Political choices have consequences. You're adults now. It's time to act like it. You fucked around with your vote. Now it's time you found out. My wife thinks I'm being too harsh. She worries this will damage our relationship with them long term. She said, they're young. They're still figuring out their beliefs. Beliefs have consequences, I told her. They made a choice. Now they'll learn what that choice means. Some of my friends agree with me, saying it's a fair wake-up call. Others think I'm letting politics come between family and being unnecessarily cruel. So, am I the asshole for cutting off my sons financially because of their political choices? You know, you got a good point. I don't think you're the asshole. I think you're going to let them find out what they fucked around with, their vote. And voting has consequences.
Hey, all you folks out in Nebraska. How you doing, baby?
Hey, man, we're good. Thanks for asking, A.Y. Den. But you're going to want to pull that hat up a little bit so you can see this. This is real corn, Nebraska corn, grown with actual tears from my Weegians, or whatever you guys are called. They come out of this pivot or from the sky from the other side of the river over there. So, yes, welcome to TikTok, brother.
News right now, the Republican governor of Nebraska has announced that Republicans in Nebraska have dropped their attempt to change the election rules in the state, making it a winner-take-all state this November.
Tens of thousands of Nebraskan farmers are going to be bankrupt within the next 2 fiscal quarters because of this. They wanted Trump to be president so badly they passed a rule that says it's an all-or-nothing vote, no splits, and they got him in. And now the deportations are coming, and he's about to steal a very large percentage of their already very dwindling workforce. Most of Nebraska's farming and harvesting and production was handled by undocumented workers, and Trump is going to be very strict bringing that handle down on his new deportation laws, and there is not going to be anybody to be working those farms. Crops are going to be dying in the fields while Nebraskan farmers go absolutely bankrupt from the decision they made. And if they think their workers are going to stay, they're not. They're not going to take the chances, not with their family, not with their children, not with their jobs. They're going to go and hide or just outright leave and go somewhere else.
Remember when you guys all said that you were voting for Donald Trump because he was going to bring mortgage rates down faster and grocery prices down faster? Well, he already said he's not going to bring grocery prices down. And now the Fed is saying those rate drops they promised to be cutting in 2025, they're not going to be able to do that because his tariff policy is so inflationary that they're not going to be able to drop those rates down the way they said they were going to. Shoot! Because inflation is going to keep going up. And inflation was on its way down before he won the election. Under, who was that again? Biden-Harris. They were bringing inflation down. But Donald Trump, his policies are inflationary. They're going to be going back up, which means rates can't go back down. Sounds like you F around and find out.